Welcome to Graham Kerr's Kitchen. It's really two programs in one. This is a series that appeals to your creative side. Food that is sumptuous stuff. How could that be? This is a program about people who want to eat healthy and reduce calories. Actually, it's about food with an aromatic quality that fills the nose. Oh, sure. But it's also about keeping my arteries clean by reducing fat. But it doesn't mean a thing if the food isn't rich and colorful. Maximize the flavor. Okay, but I must have healthy food that I can cook in minutes. I must minimize the risk. So welcome to Graham Kerr's Kitchen, where we get our heads together just for you. Well, welcome back, and this time a stir fry with some rice on the side. This is just I'm getting cracking quickly. This is just a cup of brown rice in there. Oh, and by the way, whenever you're actually sorting out a pressure cooker, the only thing to have to worry about is you should be able to actually look through it and, hello, you can actually see the person on the other side of it. Nice and clean safety valve. Well, it's not the safety valve, but it's the pressure release valve. Okay, so that's on. That on the top, bring up the heat just a little bit. I want that to cook for just over 12 minutes. I wanted to get that on the go. Okay, stir fry. Now, here's a stir fry which is really fascinating. It's actually a combination of East and West. From an Eastern point of view, we've got the technique, which of course was born out of the fact that people didn't have enough firewood, and so they cut the food up into small pieces and then actually got cracking in a very short space of time and cooked it. Well, in this case, I've married it to the marinade concept of a Western marinade, of a sort of foresty marinade, and developed the whole concept as if it was for the fall, you know, so that you've got muted colors, little fawns and browns spread over there, and then garnished with shreds of green, just little touches of green through it. I thought it looked terrific. When I sketched it out, first of all, I thought, my gosh, that's going to taste good. You just felt it in your mouth, and it does. So, if you want to have a go, all right? This takes sauteed pork tenderloin, a little marinade, a little brown rice, melts it all together in just moments, really. Come on. All right, well, marinades first of all. This is a fascinating part of this game. The marinade I'm going to use is a very simple idea. It's just, you know, buy yourself real garlic. Don't go in for the garlic chips or this stuff which comes out of a tube and pretends to be garlic. Sorry about that if you make it. I'm really sorry about that, but I would like you to be able to get to your food fast before someone gets there first. And so what I do is take one clove of garlic and just crush that down on the board there. And then take a little, you know what this is? That's rosemary. And rosemary is an absolutely marvelous aromatic plant. If you chop this very fine indeed, you will come up with a teaspoonful, which looks just like this amount here. So that's the rosemary side of it. The garlic side of it I've already crushed, so that's out of the way. Here are very fascinating items. Those are juniper berries. And a juniper berry is in fact the female berry. It's well, it's not a female berry. It's a berry that comes on a female tree called a juniper tree. And they use it for making gin and other things like that, but it has a wonderful woodsy kind of flavor to it, quite unique. And if you ever want to make a marinade which has got that kind of woody flavor to the thing, that's the way to do it. So, garlic, juniper berries, just a shake, about 1 teaspoonful of finely chopped rosemary. You can use the dried stuff, which actually dries very well. And that's the combination. I mean, it actually smells like you've just suddenly found yourself in a wood somewhere. And then a little red wine. I have mine where the alcohol's been removed, as you know, but you have the perfect choice, perfect person choice to do what you like. And then just a teaspoonful of a lower sodium soy sauce. Not a teaspoon, a tablespoonful. And so that's just drizzled in there. More about that later when we pay our trip to the supermarket. Okay. Now just finely chop a little onion and pop that in. It's about a tablespoonful of onion, but just stir it up. Oh dear, Trina, you know my wife Trina. She'd say stir with a knife and stir up strife. Ridiculous. I'm sorry, darling, I didn't mean ridiculous to you, but I mean it's all silly, it's all nonsense. Okay, these are delicious, by the way, then they're simmered just gently a little later on. This is ready then for the marinade. Now, let's have a look at the marinade meat itself. If you try this technique when you're going to do it, you get a lot more slices per the pound. What I do is put the tenderloin, strip it out, take all of the excess fat off it. This is a pork tenderloin. And then using a very sharp cleaver knife, this is Martin Yan's new cleaver, and it's absolutely magnificent. This is the one that he completely carves up a chicken in about 30 seconds or something. It's just an amazing tour de force. But here you can get several slices to the ounce. So what I've got is 2 ounces per person, all right? Just 2 ounces per person. So we just put those in there. This should be fizzling by now. Just beginning to. Yeah, see, when it's doing that, then you can turn it down just a little bit, and then at that point in time, it takes 12 minutes. That's the rice. Okay, so slice it, very thin slices. The thinner that you can get them, the better, because it actually does a better job of the marinade and cooks very quickly. It's almost done when it hits the pan. All right, so now you just simply take the marinade mixture here and you pour that onto the top. Now, here you could leave it, put a sheet of wax paper over the top of it, and you could leave it there now for 2 to 4 hours. And you're going to say to me, Graham, that is too long by far, and I really understand that, so I've got something really unique to show you. If you're going to do it 2 to 4 hours, it will work, by the way, no problem. But here's an interesting new device. It was invented by a man who was manufacturing golf balls, and they were getting little air bubbles in the golf balls, and he recognized that the only way to get the bubbles out perfectly was to take the golf ball into space, which of course is a little expensive. So what he decided to do was to reproduce space inside a vacuum here, and so he got this dome and he put the golf balls underneath it and switched this thing on, and gradually, that's good, there was a vacuum created and it pumped almost all the air out of it, and it drew the bubbles out of the golf balls. Then he was doing breast of chicken one night and in a marinade and thought, I wonder whether that would work, and did it in this machine, and it worked very well. So now there's this machine going through a 3-minute cycle to draw the air out of that, producing space, which draws all the air out of the meat, and the meat sort of expands because of that, and then recycles after 3 minutes and puts it back in, and suddenly all the marinade goes like this inside the meat pieces. So it marinates it in only 4 minutes, so which is really neat. So when it's going hissing like that, just turn it down until it's just barely hissing. Good. Okay, well, whilst that's sort of chuntering on and making that noise, why don't we visit our favorite person in the local market? Over to you. Thanks, Graham. Okay, well, now, if any of you or people that you love actually in your family are hypertensive, high blood pressure and everything else, and you have to watch sodium content, this is something to look for. When you're actually shopping in the Asian department, you're making a stir fry and you want to pop some stuff into it which makes it feel all exotic, and soy sauces, etc. Do watch the sodium content. The actual sodium content, the new nutrition facts label, which is going to go on all products, is not going to go on little things like this. It actually must be 12 square inches of available space to get all this information. But here's the information on sodium. Should be less than 2,400 milligrams per day, less than. Certainly less than that for somebody who's hypertensive, and that needs to be your physician, nutritionist who tells you that. But here's something I just wanted you to see. This is 2,400 milligrams of sodium. You might not have known how much that was. It's half a teaspoonful. This is the amount of sodium I add to the average 4-portion dish that I cook for you in Minimax. 1/8 of a teaspoonful, so you can see that I'm sort of within that range well. This is the amount that most of the manufacturers of soy sauces will tell you is in a serving, which is half a teaspoonful. Something's up there somewhere. How much do I think that's involved in that? Well, I'll tell you, by watching, I find that most people have a tendency to use a full tablespoonful per serving when they're having Chinese food, either in the recipe and sloshed on afterwards, but you know, that's about it. And that is really getting up to somewhere like 20% of the total amount of sodium in one day if you're healthy. And that's probably a bit too much. So when you're in this department, watch this. But hey, look, the best news about this kind of dish, you know, the stir-fry bit, is what can take place 4 aisles over at the salad bar. Come with me. On the way over from the other aisle, you can stop by and get one of these freezer bag things if you like, or if you can bring in your own tubs or whatever if you're trying to cut down on lots of plastics everywhere. And what you do is you come over to the salad bar. Now, just as a matter of interest, here I've got water chestnuts, here carrots, sliced mushrooms, peppers. How about this? Snap peas. These are wonderful sugar peas. They're just great. And onions and bean sprouts. So what you do is you just simply fill up, everybody else is filling up their salad container and you're filling up and making a terrible mess of the presentation here. And I use about, for 4 people, I use about half a quart size bag there. So I've got here bean sprouts, onions, peppers, watercress, and that's terrific. Gather them all together and you weigh them up. Now what's really interesting is that 4 of these little bags weighs 1 ounce, but they usually will take that off the cost for you. And so you're off home and you can, the reason why putting them in the separate bags is you put the little oil in and you cook the ones that take the longest period of time. Well, anyway, Graham, you show them how to do it. It's a good idea. Thank you once again. You know, that's a jolly good idea. And when you think about it, supermarkets never take tired old vegetables and chuck them on their salad bar. It's the best, a pick of the crop that they choose too. And you've got it fresh and just straight home and on with it motley. Okay, so this is doing well here. Now, at the end of that period of time, it switches itself off, and then you just, because the vacuum's gone, you can just release that. And here in the bottom, you'll see a certain amount of liquid which has still not been absorbed into it. But half of that liquid has now been taken up in the rest of that meat there. So that meat is now heavy in that marinade, whereas it would have taken about 4 hours to have something like the same effect, which I think is a pretty neat idea. Can you imagine doing vegetables and fish and other things like that? Really good. Now, it's too big to go wasting a lot of money on unless you're going to use it. So, you know, just think about it before you actually make a purchase. All right, I'm going to put this pan on because I want to heat this up quite a bit. And look at the basic ingredients which are going to go into the vegetable dish or vegetable part of this. There's a couple of cloves of garlic again. And you know the really neat thing about this whole business of adding garlic is that this garlic with ginger on it as well. So you've got those pieces there. And then you've got this ginger. Now here's a ginger root, which you can find quite often in produce departments, okay? Nice, thin, papery, silvery, or brownish sort of skin. And what you do is you cut off tiny little quarter-shaped pieces. Now if you cut off 5 of those and finely chop that, it'll look like this little bunch here. These are also out of one spring, your spring onions, just one bunch of spring onions, are just the white ends and they're cut in diagonal pieces. Okay, so let's try and get some oil into this one. It's not so difficult actually. 1 teaspoonful of a light olive oil and just 1/4 teaspoonful of some sesame oil and pour that in together. And those sesame seeds give just that hint, that kind of mystery, you know, that Asian feel to the dish. Then just pick up, where has this gone? Pick up the garlic and just hop that in, and also the ginger and the green onions, so all of it in together. Now it should just begin to sizzle around the side, and then you can whack it up as high as it can go. So stirring it round, I don't want it too high to begin with, just high enough to start to break out the natural oils of that. Here is a jicama. It looks as if it should be called jicama, but it's not. It's pronounced, it's with a J. And this you can simply cut in very simple wedges. You've got no seeds or gaps in the middle at all. Looks like a melon of some kind. And then if you take sort of a thin slice through like this, you can take that outside skin off very easily and chop those up into small pieces like little tiny French fries, okay? They taste, for all the world, like a water chestnut, except sweeter and nuttier. It's really delicious, okay? Now, when you've got the basic baoxiang of those ingredients, that's just that explosion of fragrance which has come up. That pan is full of fragrance in the bottom, and it's really hot now. You can then take here the meat and just drop that down in the bottom. Marinades should always be boiled, so whatever you've got in this little pot here should always be boiled and never just sort of added at the end. So you watch this as it actually takes place. Okay. All right. Now, this is the stir-fry side of it. And you say, well, you don't have a wok. It's really not necessary, so long as you've got a good heat underneath and you can move it around a pan of about this size with fairly high shoulders to it. It does the job perfectly. So we just spread that all out like this, and each of that wafer-thin pieces of meat is sort of cooking nicely. Then, on top of this, the tomato. So that can go down and just lie on the top, and I would like to leave the green onions until the end. That's one reason why when I get out to a store and do that thing with the little plastic bags, I like to use a separate plastic bag instead of just putting it all in one, because things take different time to cook, you know, and they should be just at that point of perfection. So let's turn this all the way around here. Good. And now these, they're so nutty and so gentle that they really shouldn't be allowed much time other than just to heat through. Same with the mushrooms. The mushrooms have this, there's 12 ounces of mushrooms here, and they're the regular cultivated mushrooms. Now you could use shiitake mushrooms if you like, or a field mushroom, or a mushroom to go with the sort of the sense of the marinade, which is with that juniper berries, that forest feeling. You could use wild mushrooms as well. But in this case, believe me, this just goes nice. Just a half cup now of red into the bottom, and just let that steam through together. So this is a combination now of steaming and stir frying. And all of that will come through. It is heating up right before your eyes. I've got a tablespoonful of arrowroot, which you know, thickens at only about 180 degrees, so you don't even have to boil it really. And then put a couple of tablespoonfuls of red into that, just to be able to mix that up into a slurry, and a couple of tablespoonfuls of the soy sauce. Now this is the 8% low sodium soy sauce, so this is a little easier, and you'll see on the numbers in a moment the kind of effect that that has on the dish. All right, shake it up, and there we are. Now just at the point at which it's almost ready, just hurl in the greenery. Those are little green flecks which make it look so incredible. And you see how that is kind of thin at the moment as you toss it round, and no gloss to it. But then by shaking up the arrowroot and bringing that back and pouring that into the top, you can then start to open that. Now, whilst that's being stirred with that hand, now I can, this is a question of, talk about high-speed stuff for home. The arrowroot thickens, and here the pressure comes off the pressure cooker, and we should have perfectly cooked rice. Come on. Good. Am I sending a message to anybody? And release the pressure valve then, and lift it up, and look at that. Look at that. That rice would normally take 45 minutes to be able to cook like that, and that cooked in 12. Okay, so here's your gloss Everything is glossy and looks great. So what you do then is take one plate and just turn out. Look at that. Just look at that. Ooh. You see the green flecks and everything else and how that all comes together? And you can smell the wine in that. And on one side, there goes the brown rice too. It's all autumnal in colors. A few little strips of green on the top, and we've made it. Come on, let's see how it tastes. But since this is a stir fry, I thought it'd be rather neat if we compared this to the classic. In this case, it is a pork chow mein. Now, pork chow mein is made with little noodles in it instead of brown rice. Because of that, that shows up a little bit. Well, we've done our pork tenderloin stir fry, and let's have a look at the numbers. They've gone up a bit in calories, and that's because of the brown rice. But look, they're right down here in the 6 to the 15 on fat, which is very good because that means it's only 16% calories and fat instead of 50. And look at the sodium too. That's down, way down, because of the way that we use the soy sauce. You know, to try and select and read labels and try and find out how to be able to get some of the things that you really love, but with not quite so much risk. Good idea. Okay, a little bit of, Oh, you can actually taste the forest. The juniper and the red wine just come through really nicely. Try it with some of your own classic ideas and have fun. Always helps a great deal. Okay, God bless. Well, now, where are you? Have you ever been in one of those shopping malls or malls? I never quite know how to pronounce it, but let's say it's a gigantic, great place, and you walk in one of the entryways and you want to find out where you are. Well, normally you'll find a little red dot on one of those directory things, rather like this board here, and it says, "You are here." And when you orientate yourself around, then you can find out where to go. It's a little bit like that when it comes to food and what on earth to do about where you might be at the moment. See, it's all very well to say you can eat anything providing you eat it in moderation, but it really depends. Moderation depends on who you are. See, my wife Trina, you know Trina, she has an over 300 cholesterol, just normally. And I have a 165 cholesterol now. Now, obviously, moderation for her is not the same as moderation for me. So the best thing in the world to be able to say to anybody is, first of all, know your fingerprint. Now, obviously, if I was to stick my finger there and say, I've got a different fingerprint from yours, you'd say, yeah, sure, I know that. Well, so you've got a different way of handling food to the way that I handle food. So now we know it. The question is, how do you find out? And the big thing is go to your doctor and say, please give me a cholesterol check. And in that cholesterol check, what I want to know, doctor, is, because some doctors are a little odd about this one, sorry about that, but they are. They don't have much nutritional understanding, they don't have much education on that one. But just say, I want to know what my LDL is, that's the naughty one, and I want the HDL. Both of these are fractions of cholesterol. And just ask them for those numbers. Scratch it down now, LDL and HDL. These you don't want, these you do want. And just ask him to know what your numbers are. Now, he could suggest to you some other neat numbers to be able to know. And then go find yourself a good registered dietitian. Not a nutritionalist, but a registered dietitian. And then give her or him the numbers and say, please describe to me in words of one syllable what my parameters are, what framework. Tell me in which I can actually live. And then she'll tell you that, and then go and get my book. Well, this book is designed to be able to help you when once you know where you are, to create a food style within those limits about what you are, to understand how to measure moderation, and to be able to take all these numbers I give to you every week and make real sense out of them for your family and for yourself. Okay? Do that, won't you? Now, it's not difficult, really, you know, just to go find a good doctor and get it done. Try it within the next week. It would be rather fun just to make an appointment, won't you? God bless. Have fun.